Hi Mizahar. So I was a little shy to do this vlog to start with, but I decided to do it anyways. I'm going to be talking about Eypharians and their many arms. Let me just make sure, yes, you can see everything. I'm just checking my vlog. Okay. Mostly I'm going to be talking about how to write all these arms, because sometimes I've noticed that new members are little uncertain about how to even imagine all these different arms and how they're working, and if they're all moving at the same time or if they're staying still. So I'm going to start with talking about focusing on 6-armed Eypharians, because Sienna is a 6-armed Eypharian. She has a high arm, which is about sort of normal shoulder height, mid arm that's a little bit in front and below, and then a low arm which is further down and behind. I find that with the mid arms, since they're a little bit more forwards, they tend to be her dominant arms. The high arms tend to do large gestures above, or sort of more regal things up high, and the low arms, I rarely use them, but sometimes they'll sneak in to do something sort of more sly and stealthy. I kind of assign different roles for her arms because it's a very cultural thing that they have different meanings for her. One thing I'd like to point out is not all the arms have to be moving all at once. Sometimes you're overwhelmed because, oh, there's all these arms to write now, but most of the time Sienna just has them at her sides. Often she's gesturing with one pair. I tend to have her move her arms in pairs. Sometimes she might do one thing with one pair, but a different thing with a different pair. But they don't actually always have to be moving all at once, and sometimes I don't even mention them. I do tend to describe them as either high, mid, or low. It makes it easier to write because I can just say her high arm or high left, or she raised her highs, or she moved her mids forwards, she gestured with her mids, she slipped something in her pocket with her low, and then it makes it less wordy to say her high right arm or low left arm, or so yeah, it keeps it a little bit more concise when writing. I also I'm very aware of her mental capabilities. Just like us 2-armed people, we can't always, rub our stomach and pat our head at the same time. I mean, Eypharians will have a better job at controlling their multiple arms and using them effectively at the same time, but even still there are limitations of how much you can actually multitask. Other examples of everyday stuff that we can't necessarily do without practice is playing piano with 2 hands, so they're doing very different things. Also, writing with both hands, most people can't. And then when I was learning to play the drum set, you have your 2 hands going, your 2 legs going. You might not be able to see my legs there, but it's really challenging to coordinate mentally, even though I physically have all these limbs. So I always keep that in mind when I'm trying to write her various arms, so that she's not actually doing something mentally very challenging, unless I do actually want her to practice some challenging mental things. Like for her dancing, she is often using finger cymbals, a tambourine in another hand, and using her mid-arms in a very graceful way. And so that's a very challenging thing to do mentally, but as a very good dancer, I get the impression that she would be able to do that. Things that she can do, things that are easy for Eypharians to do, are hold lots of things, carry lots of things. She was very good at waitressing because she could hold several different plates, or several mugs of beer, and she could easily go about the tavern as a waitress because she could hold all these different things, but it wasn't a mentally stimulating activity to hold many different things. Sometimes you can also hold something still while doing something else, like at one point she had to hold a piece of fabric with 2 hands and then use a third to draw a knife across to cut it. And that was really easy when I had multiple hands to work with. In terms of combat techniques, again, one of her main techniques is to grab her opponent's wrists, hold them still while she punches them in the face, or slashes them, or something. She often tries to overwhelm her opponent with her multiple arms, and especially if they grab her first, she's going to grab them right back and then, do something with her other free hands. Also, there's the aspect of dual wield, as it's pretty common for Eypharians to do. Like, since she has all her daggers, she'll be doing a lot of slashing with different hands, trying to do multiple strikes at once, and that can be very handy as an Eypharian. And then lastly, everyday techniques for Eypharians. I was already mentioning the simple cutting technique. Also, when she was doing a little bit of construction around her house, she was holding fabric with one hand, holding a nail with another hand, holding a hammer with a third, hitting it, and also holding, her bucket of nails and other things with yet another hand. And so it was really easy to do all these different things, because just by holding something you're not really mentally engaging yourself that strenuously, but you can still, it's very handy if you're on a ladder and you're doing all that with a single person. So that concludes my overall description of how to write Eypharians with multiple hands, and I hope that makes things a little clearer. You don't always have to be moving all your hands, and there are various situations where it can be very handy to have multiple hands.